Shwmae pawb, hello everybody, croeso, welcome to my wild Welsh garden. My name's Isabel and this is my garden at the top of the Swansea Valley in South Wales in the UK. And in this video I'm just going to be sort of bringing you up to date really with what's happening in the garden, because I've been away, haven't I, on the conference, and the last two videos have been about that really. And I'm starting up here to show you what's going on next door. I did tell you that the workshop next door was going to be demolished, and I was a bit worried about what was going to happen about my wall at the top there behind my greenhouse. And I thought there was going to be, you know, a gang of guys that would come in with sort of sledgehammers and, you know, mini diggers and things, and it would all be down in a day or two. But no, it was one old chap on his own. And yes, he's certainly taking his time. But it is a bit difficult to see from here. But on the right, my wall is still standing. I'm a little bit husky. I have a cold, so I apologise for that. Yeah, I've had a long conversation with my next door neighbour and the chap who's doing the demolition, and I have, what can I say, left them in no doubt that as far as I'm concerned, I would like the wall to stay as it is. So I think he's going to do his very best to leave it, but yeah, we'll have to see. And I thought, while I was up here, I'd show you my cottage. I've not shown you the inside of my cottage before. Yeah, I don't know why, really. A bit shy. But I thought you were all so nice about how snug it looked that, yeah, I thought I'd show you. This patchwork quilt was made by my mother. There you go. MPD, Mary Patricia Dunn, 20th of March, 77. I've got quite a few of these patchwork quilts. She was a very accomplished needlewoman, my mother, as also was my grandmother. This is my grandmother's work. She probably did these when she was a teenager, as part of her bottom drawer, as they called it in those days. All done by pulling threads. Yeah, pulling threads and then sort of tying them up into a pattern. Amazing, isn't it? And then this is my attempt. This is our allotment in Wigan. And this is a spare room. This is where the Aeoniums spend the winter. And then that's the spare room with laundry in. You don't want to go in there. And when I said that my cottage was damp, I did not lie. Yes, I actually have water running down the wall at the moment. That's from my neighbour's chimney, and she's trying to get it fixed. And then some very steep stairs down to the bottom. And this shows how my predecessors were old, because they had an extra banister put in, for which I'm very grateful, I do have to say. There was an old carpet that I took up, and I've just put some jolly wallpaper onto the vertical bits of the stairs and left it as it is, because it's part of the sort of, I don't know, archaeology of the house, really, to see how the stairs have been painted over and over the years. And this is what the floor would have been all over the ground floor, these sort of quarry tiles. But they were in very, very bad condition. I mean, this is not in good condition, and this is the best bit, which is why I left it, just to show, you know, what it would have been like. So I just covered it in a carpet, and this is my sitting room. It's quite dark in here because those are the only two windows. They're quite small. And they look out on the polytunnel. And then this is looking the other way. That's the door to the stairs, and that's the way through into the kitchen. So I've got patchwork curtains which I pull across in the evening just to keep the heat in. And here's some more examples of needlework. I did this years ago, 10 years ago, more probably, just with bits and pieces that I picked up in charity shops. See, you used to be able to buy these beautifully embroidered tablecloths and tray cloths, really quite cheaply, and I sort of cut them up and made this patchwork, but you can't buy them anymore. And then this is my kitchen, looking out over the garden. And this is where I sit and eat my breakfast and sit right by the boiler, watching the birds on the bird table. That's just looking back the other way. I've been doing the Big Garden Birdwatch this morning, and I'll let you know the results if you're interested, but we'll just go out in the garden first. There's the piece of wood I picked up the other day by the river, and I've stood it up where I wanted to with some rocks that I found underneath the hedge when I was doing that the other day. There's the hellebore and some snowdrops. Quite a few snowdrops popping up in different places. Not quite in flower yet, lots of buds to come. There's the gap where the little lean-to white greenhouse was, but the wall is still in place. The roof's all gone, and a great sheet of it is here. Yeah, I called over and asked if I could have a piece because I was thinking, I could, because it's metal, you see, heats up in the sun. Thought if I can find a sunny spot over the road, lie it there, and maybe get some grass snakes and some lizards. And this is looking the other way. Everything is looking very sad and wet and a little bit grim, to be honest. And I'm getting wet, so I'm just going to go and stand in the door of the greenhouse. Yeah, so work in the garden has had to take a pause, really. And we did have a dry day. I remember before the rains came, and I took the roses out from that little bit of hedge over there and put them in the dead hedge over the road. So that's just waiting for me to lay those little trees. And then this hedge will be finished. And I will just be biting my nails to see whether it comes into leaf and into flower. And this is quite a good time of year, actually, because you can see the hibernaculum. When I was doing the hedge, I had to cut down all the stems, well, most of the stems that were on it, because they were just getting broken and trampled. And I've put them over here. I was going to say tidily, but maybe not very tidily, on the bug snug. But you can actually see the hibernaculum now. See, right next to the pond. And there's two entrances on this side. There's the pipe that goes down to the interior. And I often look at it and wonder if there's anything actually in there. Anything hibernating, you know, spending the winter. But there's no way of knowing. I just have to hope. Yeah, I'm not going to be doing much out here today. So I thought I'd just take you into the greenhouse and the polytunnel and show you what's happening with the permaculture. So in the greenhouse, these pots that had the tomatoes in during the summer, I've got purple sprouting broccoli and winter salad. And the winter salad hasn't done much. It's corn salad, winter purslane and wild rocket mostly. But But I'm hoping that, you know, now the light is coming back and some warmth, I'll have some more broad beans, because the broad beans that I planted in the polytunnel didn't do anything, which didn't surprise me. I've never been able to grow broad beans sown in autumn. And then I've got some pea shoots coming up here. This is just for winter salad. And some sweet peas. Oh yes, and some cuttings that I took of that prostrate rosemary that I dug up last autumn, which seemed to be, I think, taking, and then some little seedlings of purple toadflax, I think those are, and that's a ragged robin. Yeah, it's amazing what pops up in pots. The greenhouse does tend to get kind of full of stuff. Okay, so this is the polytunnel, the Permaculture polytunnel. And I've just bought myself that. You know, it's a little plastic greenhouse. I mean, there's absolutely no point in putting it outside because within a few days it would be halfway up the road. But I thought it would go very well in here. To protect some of the more tender seedlings, because we do have killer frosts here, sometimes as late as the beginning of May, and I thought I could put them in there for a bit of extra protection. Hope you can hear me. The rain is battering against the polytunnel. It has a door that you can sort of wind up, and I've also got an extra fleece cover if it gets really, really cold. But look, I've got something in here already. These are tubers. These are tubers for the permaculture, in here and outside. Chinese artichoke is something that I've never grown before. These came before Christmas, and I had no idea how, you know, what to do with them or anything. So I looked them up, and some said plant them lying down, you know, horizontal. Some said do it vertically. But to be honest, I wasn't entirely sure which end was which. So I've laid them all horizontal. And yeah, I have shoots. I have shoots already. And these only came the other day. These are mashua and ochre. Now, I've never grown ochre before, so I don't know what's going to happen there. The mashua are perennial nasturtiums, and they climb. So I've had those before, and last year they just disappeared. So I think the learning experience there is make sure that you keep some tubers over the winter. Yes, I'm quite excited really. Got two different sorts of each. A pink ochre and a yellow ochre, and a bloody tears mashua and a white mashua. So here is one of the currant bushes. This was outside last year and I transplanted it in the autumn. And there do seem to be some healthy looking buds. So I'm hoping that's going to survive. And then I underplanted it with winter purslane, which has just sat there all winter doing nothing, but it's just started to grow. So I'm hoping to harvest that. And then this is chard. And I never have any luck with chard really, either in the summer or over the winter, but then in the spring it suddenly starts to shoot. So that's what I'm expecting here. There's a perennial kale there, and some strawberries, and another perennial kale here. This is a variegated form, which isn't doing quite as well as the other one. I've got one of each outside too to compare, see which does the best. And then under the table there's the asparagus that was also outside, which did absolutely nothing. So I don't know whether it's going to do any better in here. If it does start to shoot, then I shall, of course, remove all the rubbish that's on top of it, and all these seed trays. These are all the wildflower seeds. One thing I'm pleased about is I have a tray full of teasels. They have started to self-seed out in the garden, but I think there's not enough seeds in the seed bank, and so I should be potting those up, but they won't flower until next year. And then on this side, there's some of those perennial leeks, Babington leeks. And, I really don't know why I grow them, because they are the fiddliest things to prepare. And in the corner was a sweet Cicely, which seems to have completely disappeared. So I don't know whether it's going to reappear. And then I've got a couple of purple sprouting broccoli here. And I've underplanted it with some of that corn salad from the greenhouse. So I'm hoping that's going to start growing. There's a couple of, elephant garlic there. And then this is that American land cress, is it? It tastes like watercress, but I can only eat the very, very young leaves. The big leaves are too tough for me. And then there's some more corn salad over there, and a couple of sweet rocket, which I'm hoping are going to flower. And then more chard and perpetual spinach. I've been cutting those leaves small for winter salads. And some of that perennial cabbage, and I've also been doing the same there. I hope you can hear me. I think this polytunnel is just about to blow away. And then some of those winter radishes, which I do have to say I'm not particularly fond of. This is just a mixture of oriental greens, I think they call it. I can't tell you what the individual plants are, to be honest. But they're supposed to, grow through the winter. You sow them after the summer solstice, and then they don't go to seed, and they just produce lots of leaves. I've had such a lot of salads from this, but I have had to learn to share it with the slugs. It's not been easy. I've always been quite fastidious really about my food. So sharing my food with slugs it is quite a big step. But, you're never too old to learn. So come on, you've got this. You can do this. And look what there is on the side of the polytunnel. Yes, I don't know if you remember last summer or if you weren't following me then, but yeah, I had so many cabbage white butterfly caterpillars in this polytunnel. They just ate everything. They ate everything to skeletons. And then they crawled up the sides of the polytunnel and pupated. And there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And as you can see, there's not so many now. And there's also a lot of the cocoons of the little parasitic wasp. That's obviously where there was a larvae. And there are still some pupae cocoons that will probably produce butterflies. But there are enough of the parasite, I'm hoping, that they have a head start in controlling them. And so this will show really whether, if you have an infestation of a pest, if you leave it and allow the predator or the parasite to build up, whether you can reach a sort of, an equilibrium, a way of living with them. So we'll see. We'll see. Yep, there you go again, you see. We'll see. We'll see what happens. So there's the salad that I've just picked. All sorts of bits and pieces, including the tops of the broad beans. Yummy. They're like pea shoots, except they taste like broad beans. And I just leave it in there for an hour. And then any slugs that there are come off in the water. So this morning I did the RSPB Big Garden Birdwatch. Sorry, the what looks like mist coming across is from my central heating. Yeah, and you know, I'm finding it increasingly difficult. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's because my eyesight is failing, or whether there's more birds, or whether there's more foliage, so more places for them to hide. But I'm finding it so difficult. I mean, I can see that there's birds, but, you know, I'm thinking, is that a great tit or a blue tit? And, oh no, it's a sparrow. And, you know, when there's lots of little birds and they're all zipping around all over the place, I find it very difficult to count them. And particularly like this, when there's rain on the window, you know, it's just really, really difficult. So this is the count that I had, and I've also added what I saw last year and the year before. So blackbirds, I saw 3. Well, last year I saw 12. Yeah, there were a lot of blackbirds last year, but obviously not in 2024. Sparrows, I've always had a lot of sparrows, but I think there's more now than there used to be. I mean, I've put 21, but that was very much a guesstimate, to be honest. There could well have been a lot more than that. Blue tits have always had about half a dozen. Great tits, yeah, 3 or 2. Coal tits, 2 or 1. Robins, yeah, 1 or 2. Dunnocks, 2 or 3. Grey wagtail, usually 1. It didn't turn up in time last year, but I remember it turned up afterwards. Pied wagtails, usually 1, sometimes 2. Song thrush has been in the garden a lot this year, like last year, but previous to that, never saw one in the garden. And this year, for the first time, a goldfinch turned up. Didn't come to the feeders. It was feeding on the evening primrose seeds. Often have at least 1 magpie, sometimes 2. Always have a lot of starlings, but very difficult to count because they sort of come in a great gang and mill about for a couple of minutes and then scutch off so quickly. Again, I've put 20, but it could have been more than that. No collared doves this year, but they have been around, and ditto chaffinches. I haven't seen a siskin, not since last year. So what I would say is that over the past 3 years anyway, numbers are holding up in my garden. Sparrows and starlings, I would even say, have increased. So that's good. No sort of, apart from the siskins, no major declines. Yes, I don't know what's happened to them, whether they're around, they just haven't decided to come into the garden. So it's still raining and windy and very unpleasant out there, so I'm not going to go out again, I don't think. So thanks for watching. Thanks for joining me again in my wild Welsh garden. I do love having a company. It's such a joy making these videos that you enjoy watching. And yes, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, then please do. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Hwyl fawr.